Hey, sports fans! Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown live show coming at you at our regular scheduled time on a Monday morning. We've got me, we've got Combo, we've got NBA, and everything else. So thanks for joining us. Combo, how's it going today?
It's going well. Played some basketball yesterday. Felt like Luka, like just passing it to my teammates. They couldn't make layups at the end of the game, but I dropped the equivalent of 73 when we're talking about a 24-point game when game's 24. So shouts to me, shouts to Luka.
Well, we got to talk about that for sure because obviously Luka went off for 73. You get the sense that they're all looking at each other and they're all noticing 60, 63, 7, whatever, and they all try and like Embiid and, are they all trying to one-up each other? Is that why they're kind of happening at the same time?
That's part of it. I also think that the level of these players offensively in terms of skill set is higher than ever before, but I also think it's the lull before the All-Star game.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
It also probably has something to do with who they're playing. I mean, you know, it's nice when you're Dallas and you go against Atlanta with the 27th ranked defense. When I went through the game, I did the breakdown. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. A lot of people were responding to it. It felt like, this is the 27th ranked defense. Like they didn't really adjust. They didn't try and change much up. And then at some point after 20 points in 18 or 20 points in 10 minutes, whatever it was, like you probably shouldn't be giving that player layups, right? He was getting layups that were unmolested. It was really hard to fathom that would happen, and it kept happening.
So it's crazy that he had 73 because if you watch the fourth quarter, even though he had timely baskets and he was scoring, I mean, you would never thought he had 73 if you just watched the fourth quarter. I mean, they were doubling him hard. He was passing the ball. Guys were missing easy layups. It was crazy. He was getting frustrated. So I think the first three quarters of having 65 in the first three quarters is even more impressive than having 73 on the game. It was just a ridiculous three quarters.
Right. And to your point, like he probably should have had a 73-point triple-double.
Yeah, right.
And if you added the assist points, he actually contributed 100 points in that game. So, and it did spark this notion of, will there be someone who scores 100 points? The other thing I would notice about the Luka game, I probably need to watch it like in whole one more time to get the real sense of it, but it definitely didn't feel like he was like, quote unquote, on fire. Right. Sometimes you get on fire and like you hit like 4 threes in a row and then you score another couple.
Yeah.
It just seemed like a very ho-hum. He came down, did his business, punched the clock, punched out, and had 73 points.
That's a very interesting point because I took that away from comparing the Cat and Joel game. I just felt Joel was doing what he does, but Cat seemed absolutely in fuego for those first three quarters. That was the difference there. Like Joel was just punishing them when he had to, and he happened to score 70 somehow, but like Cat looked absolutely on fire, like he was in the Matrix.
Oh, for sure. Well, this is great because we got to talk all about. Let's keep talking about that because I did the videos on that game as well, on the Cat game, and we'll get to the Warriors and the Lakers. That was on Saturday. I posted a video, by the way, and first of all, if you want your questions answered, the best way to do that is on YouTube with a super chat. It helps us keep this show going, and we really appreciate it. We'll give you lots of love and hype and put your question on the screen and all that stuff. But I just posted really quickly. I tend to be a little bit wary of posting anything about LeBron because either it turns into a thing about, Jordan would never do that, or like for instance today, and I welcome anybody who wants to come on. We'll see maybe in the comments if you are one of those people. So Klay Thompson down the stretch in the first overtime, I think it was, there's an ISO on top with LeBron James, and he's clearly forcing him to his left because he must assume, well, he's a righty, so I got to force him to his left. But in that ISO situation, which tends to, get a jump shot because the rest of the defense is in the lane and they're kind of clocking things up, you kind of want to force, or you want to force LeBron to his right because going to his left with the way his elbow would flares out a lot of the time, it's actually an advantage to LeBron to go to his left and pull up. He's in much more. And by the way, most righties are like that anyway
100%.
Because it's a natural alignment to the basket. So that, I don't know. I didn't really check the mentions, but it looks like people really got frustrated as if I was just, again, trying to talk SHIT about a player or about LeBron specifically when I'm simply pointing out that, like, for him, going to his left is actually an advantage.
Yeah, I mean, usually on your dominant hand, as a driver, you're more dominant when it goes to your strong hand, but as a shooter off the dribble, you're probably more dominant with the opposite hand when it comes to the dribble.
Right. Yeah, your body is already naturally more aligned. It's easier.
Right.
Whereas if you're going to your right and you're pulling up as a righty, there's a rotation in the air. It's just a little bit of a harder shot, which is why like a shot like that Kyrie hit in Game 7 of the Finals in 2016, like that's probably the hardest shot of all time to hit. The only thing that would make it harder, and by the way, Steph was right in his grill. So I would think the only thing that made that shot would have made that shot harder would be if it was even farther away, right? Like that's the only thing. That's as hard as you can make it on yourself.
D Book versus the Knicks.
Now I'm forgetting which one is
Game winner. He went even like more on a fade, and it was like even a little bit faster than Kyrie. Like he had his pedal to the metal. He goes right and he wins the game off like a fade three with dribbling with his right hand. You know what I mean? Where he had to turn his body, but it looked easy for him. I'm sure he reps that out all the time.
For sure. Well, at that level, you got to do something to make it harder on yourself because you're just nailing shots. Like you watch Michael Porter Jr. on the gun, right? And it's like it's almost like it's just a zen. He's not even conscious. He's just conscious. He's just nailing shot after shot. Those guys shoot 90+% on those. So at some point, you got to make it harder on them. And I said, yeah, let's go to your right, pull up full speed from 28 feet and see how that goes. So anyway, yeah, and I'd be more than happy to explain that or any other kind of thing about LeBron if you want to come on the show, and maybe we'll even I'll let somebody come on this time if they behave, and see how that goes, Combo, because it's a little frustrating. Like I even posted one, and LeBron had a pass from half court to D'Lo that was I like could very well be the best pass I've seen all season long. Certainly in the full court, he caught it in a one-time from the half court cross court bounce pass in stride, right by the knee of Wiggins. It was amazing. And like just the people who wanted to say, oh, wow, you're actually crediting the guy. It's like, I give him plenty of credit all the time. And it's weird that, I get these LeBron, what can we call them? What's the acceptable way to call LeBron fans these days? What's the name? What's the term?
Yeah, I'm not using that term.
You're not going to use it.
Yeah. But you know what I'm talking about. I would say like these type of comments, it comes with the territory when you have a big platform, Coach Nick. So I'm seeing more and more hate myself. Like it's funny. I'm sure you could be attacked for being anti-LeBron and pro-LeBron within the same month. Like just people want to put you in a box one way or another.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then, by the way, for the LeBron fans, okay, we can call them stans, right? That's okay, right? It's
yeah, stans. That's okay. Yeah.
All right. Okay. For those people, I just want you to understand that almost every big star's fans will accuse me of hating their player or hating on their player.
Right.
We're not a highlight show. I mean, if they screw up and travel or something, I'll break it down. Or they miss a key shot or make a bad decision, I'll break it down.
I totally agree with you. In their head, they feel like you're fishing for something negative about LeBron, when in reality, you're just looking through the video and it's your analysis, your honest analysis.
And it caught, by the way, the reason why I shared it today was because it was one of those wide angles from the baseline. So you really could see how Clay's feet were and how LeBron moved. Like that was a special angle that really helped make that point. Even the one where when LeBron was shooting and his eyes followed the ball, one was destroyed my timeline. The point is, it didn't have to be LeBron. It could have been anybody, but because they showed LeBron and they left it on his face instead of following the ball into the basket, that doesn't happen hardly ever. So you can watch the eyes and see how they follow the ball. Like that was the whole point of that whole thing. It really didn't matter it was LeBron necessarily or anything like that, but just because they left it on him, I was able to use that clip and make it as a teaching point. But man, the whatever that point was went right over people's heads. We have our first super chat. Let's get to that. Let's see what this one says. I haven't even read it yet. From our friend of the breakdown, Alan Tran. Thank you so much, Alan. Great to see you out here. Really, really thank you. So generous. There's 5 active players in the 70-point club. Luka, Joel, Book, Donovan, Dame. Are players just more skilled these days, or is defense just bad?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So shouts to Alan. Yeah, I mean, like, come on, man. If you put these guys, in the 90s where the defense was supposedly good? I mean, what if we just took a time machine and put them there? They weren't even guarding players out there, except like maybe like the Derek Harper hand check. Some guys were full court pressing, but in half court offense, most of the guys weren't even closing out that far, So, right. I mean, they would get these numbers. Like D Book in the 90s, like he would have a 70-point game in my opinion. So I do
maybe.
think.
Well, only reason I want to interrupt you is the biggest problem is pace. Like they didn't play that fast back then, so they probably wouldn't have enough possessions back and forth.
Well, there was a time during like the TMC era, right, where teams were scoring a lot. I don't know if it was maybe late 80s or early 90s. What was that time when like, or maybe it was 70s?
70s.
Okay,
70s
70s.
was faster, believe it, for a while. I think we've caught up to that even now. I think if you look at the possessions, I can check it while we're
like they were just taking terrible shots, like tough mid-range shots, in that era, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was in the 70s. There wasn't even an NBA. There wasn't a 3-point line
until 1980, right, or 79. One of them when the 3-point line came in.
Since the merger, a little earlier than that. Right?
Okay,
so part of the 70s. But
to answer the question, I think players are more skillful than ever before. I think that's what it comes down to.
Well, let's see. So the leading team in this year for pace is the Wizards at 103.36. Possessions. That's per game. Okay, right. That's the pace. 103.36. So if we go back, I can't go back farther than, well, I can go 96, 97. And the leading pace there was 97.05 possessions. So that's a pretty significant, much slower. And I bet you it got even slower in the earlier 90s when it really was a slog. So that's one thing. But certainly the players are more skilled from behind the line, off the dribble, all of that, which is another, even when the threat then emerges, right now you're talking about what you were saying about the closeout changes and it becomes much harder to guard. It's even, you can load up more now. They have more lenient defensive rules that you can kind of zone, right? You couldn't do that back then. So you would have it's a mixture. Like in theory, the individual ISO scorers had a better time because it was only one-on-one generally, although they could figure some things out. Whereas here it might be even harder, and yet we're seeing it more. It's a conundrum, but either way, the pace is no question a big part of this.
What would be interesting in the midseason tournament next year? Let's go with those NBA rules, no zone.
Oh, wow,
and see what develops.
Well, and let them have the hand checking rule.
Let's go to and see and see if maybe somebody still gets 70.
Wow, did you just do that because you want to get that AI to take that little section and post it on your socials after we're done? Because that's what it's for. That's a great one. Make sure you clip that one at 13 minutes.
Got you.
Yeah, we should go back to 90. And I hope I threw that in there. You get that. Don't cut me out when I said let's go hand checking rules too. We should go full 90s rules with the illegal defense and hand checking and maybe the fact that you don't get thrown out so easily for hard fouls.
So what would the excuse be then? Like, the defensive players are just less athletic? That's not true. Like less effort? I don't think so. Like what would be the excuse then?
Oh yeah, no. Effort is interesting. I mean, I found D'Lo falling asleep on Clay a few times where you're like, how can you do that in that game?
Okay, fair. That's D'Lo. Yeah, that's fair.
I just think it's hard because these guys everyone is so good now off the dribble. It's just really hard to be any kind of ball stopper or not ball stopper, whatever the term is, lockdown defender because you're going to get blown by, right? And then you can't touch them, so that's going to be a problem. So I just feel like defensively you're on ice a little bit there. You're like skating a lot just because you're worried about fouling. They're so good with the ball manipulation. You could argue that the carries are a little bit lax these days and what they're able to do with that. So all of that is just, the rules have been designed and the way they're calling the game has been designed for scoring. And I think everyone's a little bit frustrated with that at this point.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, definitely.
Now, the interesting thing about Cat had to get benched because they basically were like, we're going to get you 70 points and we're going to ignore everybody else. We're going to slow the offense down and not let anybody else in a rhythm and then maybe get some bad shots. And then finally, Finch had to put him on the bench in the crunch time for a little bit there. And it was fascinating because that doesn't really happen.
And then he tore him up in the post game.
Who did? Oh, yeah. Finch, right? Yeah. And I had some of those quotes. If you go see the video of it, I mean, there's a certain right way to play, and I suppose when you want to respect the game, you should play in the moment and not be feeding. Now, here's the thing: when a guy gets hot, you got to feed him, right?
Yeah, but I think it wasn't for the purpose of winning the game. It was for the purpose of let's see Cat score 100 or something to that effect. And when you're doing that, you can sacrifice the team's success if you go too far, too deep into force feeding a player.
Right, as it did, basically. I mean, that they didn't win the game.
You know what I wonder in that Luka game? What if DeJounte plays Luka like that, maybe from after the first quarter? I mean, and then they were like doubling and tripling him as well. I think Atlanta would have got blown out.
Oh, well, I mean, DeJounte was a little bit better, like what we saw, because he didn't guard him much at all on most of the scores that he made through the first three quarters, right? We didn't see him on him. And then the fourth, he was guarding him a little bit and like seemed like he did a little bit better. He denied him once or twice.
Yeah, and guys were shading off their own players, though. It wasn't only DeJounte, but yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so as a result, I just would have liked them to see do anything, like try different things. There wasn't enough variation. There wasn't enough adjustments in my mind to, by the way, there are some times you got to knock him to the ground, right? Take a hard foul, disrupt his rhythm. Maybe he'll retaliate. You know what I mean? Those are the kind of things you need to do when a guy gets to 50 points in three quarter, whatever it is. Take a hard foul, put him on his seat. You don't have to hurt him. Everybody, you should know how to be able to, cut the guy off, and then there's chest to chest contact, and he fought, whatever it is. I would have thought that somebody should have done that. They could have blasted him more. Although I did also show that there are, the lively gravity that he has is no joke, right? Like he gets those lobs and dunks.
He's a really good player.
Capella just like literally like just kind of reaching out to Luka, but like 5 feet away from him because he didn't want to lose contact with Derek Lively. And so, the Mavericks understand that, and they know how to kind of attack that. I did like the fact that there were moments when they did double him once, and they would hit the short roll, and boom, 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 they were ready to go and got a layup off of an excellent cut. Like they are well designed to get that and cause havoc. And once Kyrie comes back, then they're going to be, that much tougher to guard.
Yeah, Lively is to Luka as Capella was to Harden.
I think, yeah, okay, absolutely. I was going to say, does Lively have any more offensive skills than Capella?
You know what? His passing is actually, I see some good stuff from him as a passer. It's not great yet, but he's probably a better playmaker than Capella.
I got to go study some of that film. I want to see if it's not a Lively.
I mean, also he's taller, a lot taller, which makes his ceiling higher.
I guess so. I mean, how much taller is he?
If I had to guess, 3 inches. In the comment section, tell us 3-4 inches.
Okay. All right.
Or you could Google it. Google it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could Google it. You can Google it. We can all Google. But whatever. I'd rather be in the fog of not knowing and let it be excitement and mystery. We have another super chat. Let's get to V's. Thank you so much, V's. Very, very appreciate it. Great to have you here and be part of the conversation. He asks, how do you feel? They ask, how do you guys feel about AAU freelance philosophy seeping into professional basketball? Much of the foundations of hoops is becoming a lost art. Well, I will say this. I mean, the NBA doesn't necessarily have. The offensive schemes and the way they attack now, it seems to me a lot more like a throwback. The pistol action 21, all that is from the 40s and the 50s. So I feel like we're seeing the mixing of incredible individual skill with the movement patterns for the most part. I would say half the teams, get into that well and are able to run good offense with motion for the most part, unless you're like heliocentric stuff, like a couple teams with like Luka, for instance. But even them, they'll run stuff that's pretty nice as well. So I'm not so sure we've seen the complete AAU thing that seep into the NBA game. I guess I will say there are moments in every NBA game where the teams go back and forth missing threes. Right. And that sort of starts to feel disjointed, right? Like they're kind of forced threes are not great. They're brick. And then they go back and then you get 2 or 3 of those in a row or 4 in a row. Then it starts to feel like that. But it seems like it's still pretty rare. What do you think, Combo?
I mean, that's more the Warriors influence, analytics influence, Maury ball influence, even European basketball with bigs that could stretch it influence. I don't know if that's much AAU than vice versa, but I think AAU, the freelance philosophy, as V said, seeps more into the players that don't even make the NBA because they're trying to do things that they can't do. And it kind of hurts themselves as a basketball player in a lot of ways. Right. So I think it's hurting basketball as a whole. And maybe when you get to the NBA and they're the best of the best, I mean, you want your best players to have that skill set of freelance, right? Like you need your best players to have that. So I don't know. I think it's kind of hurting grassroots basketball more than the NBA once the best players are moving forward and the worst players are weeded out.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the other thing is they don't practice that often, right? Maybe AAU teams practice once a week, twice a week.
I mean, NBA doesn't either, but yeah.
Fair enough. So as a result, like what offense are you going to be able to run? You're going to have to run some sort of read and react freelance thing. So that's probably the biggest issue. If I were doing the AAU program and running and the head coach and there were good players, I would need like at least 2 practices a week, at least. And I would want to make sure they are running an offense that has, read and react principles and things that you can jump into. But all that pistol, all the get actions, all those things would have to be so we're all on the same page. And you can get like a 2 or 3 guys interacting on automatics. That it will then open up stuff for everybody else. But it's really, really hard, I have to imagine, with the practice schedule to get it. And as a result, here we are. When I was coaching in the late 90s, AAU wasn't really even a thing like that. Like the high school team was still the more important place to get your exposure. Believe it or not, you might not remember this, but that's how it was.
Yeah, but early 2000s AAU was pretty big because the high school teams were pretty good, but then all the best players from those high school teams would play together and make like dominating AAU teams. And I think that was even, before my time, like the Ron Artests and the Steph Marburys from that era, like they used to all play together on like Gauchos and Riverside Church. So, I mean, those were AAU teams all the way back then.
Yeah, but that was still 2000 or post 2000, I think.
No. Not Marbury,
Right. But even still, like, the high school team was still sort of the place where you wanted to focus and play and get your exposure up until probably right around like the 2000, 2001 era. And then it explodes into AAU and then the outsized influence of that. To the point now where, it's like the high school teams, it's like, you're going to play there, but my coach is going to force me to run offense and all that stuff. And I think some players respond to that well. And I think that the college coaches still like that when they're trying to scout. But clearly what AAU is now taking over on that at front. And again, that style, it is concerning to some degree. But at the very least for me, if I go through the teams in the NBA right now, I mean, I would say there's maybe a third or maybe less than a third that really don't run the kind of offense that we would want to be able to see. And the difference with the bottom 10 teams are, the finishing. They're not as good at finishing as the other teams are. And so but they're running some of that stuff. But I hear you. It definitely is a concern.
And a lot of this comes down to the coaching, right? Like I think a lot of coaches these days, it's definitely not every coach. There's a lot of great coaches out there. They're either living vicariously through the players or they're trying to make money off the players. And you're just almost there to showcase their talents instead of trying to make them better basketball players.
Exactly. Right. Well, by the way, the other thing about making people better basketball players, like, you'll hear D1 coaches big time say, I'm here to win. I'm not here to train my players to play in the NBA. But I don't see how those two things are different, why they have to be competing. You should be training your players to be as good as they possibly can individually. What's the point of running this offense that you're trying to run if they don't have the skills to run it? So
like maybe like Kyle Kuzma, he benefited playing the 4-5 in college when maybe the coach could have had him playing the 3, what he'd be playing in the NBA, but it benefited him most for that team to play more in the post.
Interesting point. And I believe I did a video on him as well. I did one that covered him and maybe Donovan Mitchell. Like why did we didn't see their ability in college after they did it in the NBA? I hear you. I just feel like if you find a position that Kuzma would play that would give him the best chance to succeed at Utah. Is it Utah? Isn't that where he played? Yeah,
yes.
I think
yes. The Utah Utes.
It goes to show that, like, it seems to me like then you'd be good offensively. Certainly, if you need to play the 4 or 5 defensively, okay, but offensively, I feel like let's unlock the players as well as their abilities can unlock. That should help you, even if you have a different team. I guess I don't know. I'm not sure, but it's a good point. I hear you. Let's get to another super chat we have from King Jaffe Joffer. Great to see you. Thank you so much, King. Thoughts on Kentucky's new big Zvonimir Ivisic, 7'2" shooter handling the ball on the open floor, around the back passes in first game. I was stunned. I have not seen him. I am upset, but now I need to watch. Have you seen him?
Yeah, I mean, very talented offensively. Just the only thing would be like, I would love to ask King Jaffe Joe, maybe he could let us know in the comment section, like, how does he feel like he would fare defensively at the next level? But obviously, he's super talented.
Is he big and heavy, or is he skinny and tall?
In between.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna watch this. Okay, Ivisic. I hope I said that right. If it's Ivisic. Anyhow, all right. So sorry, I don't have an input, but thank you for being there with us, Combo, to give us a little bit of a breakdown. You think he can pass the ball? You've seen some of this?
Yeah, he's a very skilled big man. Yeah.
What is Kentucky even like? Are they good this year?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they got the kid Dillingham he's gonna be probably he really helped the stock this year, coming from overtime elite and now playing in college. So they got a lot of good
All right,
guys.
they're ranked 6th, and they're 15-4, 10-1 at home, and 3-2 on the road.
I mean,
Okay,
he's so
I gotta get some college
he's
football.
probably. I mean, Avicii's probably go lottery though.
Okay,
Yeah,
and is he a freshman? I guess so.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
All right, all right, all right. Good to see. He's only played a few games, according to Cheeto. All right, well, maybe I'll have to fire that up and check out what they got going. So thanks for the heads up on that. Let's talk a little bit Warriors and Lakers. So might as well get into that. Double overtime game, and I will say this: neither of these teams strike me as championship teams right now. Right, like that seems clear. I think the one thing the Warriors might have unlocked a little bit is that they've realized, with LeBron where he is in his career, they can. I mean, and by the way, Clay guarded him back in the day as well, but they have Clay and they have Wiggins. They have two guys that can really kind of guard him, and they also have Draymond that can guard AD. That seems to work out okay for the Lakers, well enough where they could build a 15-point lead in the third quarter. And then, and they've done this before. They had an 18-point lead against the Nuggets in the second half. So the Warriors are confusing to me because you can't just like build huge leads against these good teams without being good and without having some recipe that you can flow to that could make you a competitive team. And they're doing it without CP3 and without Gary Payton II. Now Podziemski's been just a revelation for them. And I almost feel like maybe CP3 is a little bit more expendable on that end, or if he goes down, it's okay. But I do feel like GP is a guy that they could really use.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we've talked about the CP3 fit there for a long time, even though like he was doing some good stuff in his veteran way off the bench. But I mean, going into the playoffs, I don't know how he really fits this team when your best players are going to be playing a lot, because we never felt like he's the greatest fit with Draymond and Steph Curry, right? So but on the other hand, he has no value trade wise. Maybe an expiring contract is his value?
No, CP3.
Yeah,
no trade value.
I mean, they're gonna all the teams in a trade are going to be asking for pods. They're going to try and get him in if there was some kind of trade. So
right,
we'll see what develops.
And he's just very solid. He's very solid. He can make terrific passes. He's big. He's probably more like mobile, maybe defensively than CP3 is now.
Oh yeah.
But CP3 might ultimately be a little bit more experienced and better on the defensive end, but he's also a lot shorter, right? VP is a 6'5", I think, right?
Yeah, he's 6'5", and he's stronger than he looks. Like he could hold up on defense. Yeah.
Yeah, so that they might be able to get more run from him than they would maybe on a half broken down CP3, but because again, you have to kind of assume. Unfortunately, I don't normally do that, but at this point, you kind of have to assume that CP3 is going to be banged up and injured and not there all the time, and that's unfortunate. But that's sort of been an inescapable pattern for years now for him. So, but I do think that GP just gives him a little bit more of a dimension, maybe a little bit more, on the defensive end for them.
He's like their Bruce Brown.
Yeah, and it's possible that they can finally figure out how to unlock get Wiggins sort of back on track mentally and it just better focused. And if they can get him, we've seen it. He's proved it at the championship level. They have something. Now let's talk about the Lakers for a second. Like, do they have something here? D'Lo, by the way, almost lost the game for them. By the way, he had they had one pick and roll. And by the way, it was nice to see LeBron was letting him have it, saying, "Hey, you run the offense, you be the guy." And he ran a pick and roll and basically threw the ball away. These are Laker fans telling me something when the sign starts to fall off the wall in the middle of this, but throws the ball away and somehow it gets tipped and it should be a steal and it goes right to AD for a layup. I mean, that was lucky. The next time down, he does throw it away and almost the same kind of play, but then comes back out of nowhere to dribble the ball up and hit a huge three when they were down maybe 4 to cut it to 1, something like that out of the blue. Like it was one of those yes shots. And he's been just fantastic for them over the last 6-7 games. After that moment where he was upset, we talked about it. Like maybe they thought he was going to get traded. So I don't think they can lose him. They probably need him because they don't have anybody else that can replace that.
Yeah, I mean, D'Lo is one of those guys. And then he hit a huge three in transition, right? I mean, that
Yeah,
was a
that's
phenomenal shot. That was a dagger. But he's just one of those guys that could get up a clean look whenever he wants, and you need players like that, especially in the playoffs. Like when everything's going awry, like D'Lo could get up a shot, and also the playmaking is pretty good, man. He's a pretty good passer. He could be a connecting piece in some ways. So you always want more good passers, more shot makers on the floor, and he brings that value. Even though once in a while he'll make a boneheaded play.
Right, exactly. And like that's the whole thing is you have to hope that he gives you a lot more than the boneheaded plays take away.
Yeah.
And for the most part, when he's doing what he's doing, that no question. But it can be frustrating. And you're talking about being a title team. Do you want someone who's all over the place like that? That's the only question. But he's proven himself well enough. I think he could do it.
I feel like this bubbling trend on X and Instagram is like try to compare D'Lo and Austin Reeves and who's the better player and who's the worst player. Do you see that as well?
Yeah. I mean, I see everything. I see it's just a cesspool of everything, and people from 1 second to the next want to either destroy you or praise you. It doesn't matter what you did before.
I thought we got past this, Coach. Oh, you're talking about the players.
I'm talking about like on Twitter, for instance. That's what you're talking about, the response and stuff like that.
Yeah. So when looking at those players, like who, if you're the Lakers, who would you rather keep in like a trade for whoever it may be, a DeJounte Murray, a Zach LaVine? Like who would you try to keep out of those two?
Between DeJounte Murray and Zach LaVine for the Lakers?
No. In terms of like who would be untouchable, who would be more untouchable for you between Reeves and D'Lo?
Oh. Wow. It's funny. I was really high on Reeves, and then he's really kind of struggled to find that same kind of role that he had and what we saw, last year and then in the Team USA. I don't know though, because D'Lo is scintillating and can really make plays that Reeves certainly can't.
Yeah, he's more. It's fair to say he's more talented.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's tough. And then we have to talk about defensively. I don't even know. I'm not sure. I guess I'd have to see what the deals were, then have to figure out whether it'd be worth it to lose one of those two. But you have to imagine they're probably going to trade one of those two, right? And Vanderbilt is becoming the savior all of a sudden. Have you noticed this? Like Darvin Ham is getting criticized at the wazoo. We see in the Ryan has a comment now about it. As soon as Vanderbilt checked in, we all forgotten that last year, like Vanderbilt checking in or playing with the other guys made it so hard to run their offense because he was so completely ignored that it was a little bit unviable. And they've been criticizing Darvin Ham up the wazoo because he's not going to that lineup. And then all of a sudden we've seen this year in the last couple of games, we've seen that lineup perk up a little bit and play well, but then he won't go back to it. So I don't know. I'm old enough to remember that Vando was a problem for them, like certainly offensively, that wasn't an optimal lineup.
We're all old enough to remember that, Coach Nick.
Are we? Okay, good. We have another super chat. We have a couple. Let's get into it. Let's go. So Carlos Gutierrez, thank you so much, Carlos. I really appreciate it. What do you feel is the most inconsistent not called foul in the NBA? Well, I think the most misunderstood one is the block charge. I think that we saw one that LeBron tried to take a charge in overtime or double overtime against Kuminga, and he was all upset, and Laker fans were upset. But that was a clear block. Like he was not in front of the driver. He was to the side of him and caused the contact. So that one's the most misunderstood rule. But the inconsistent not called foul the most. I don't know. Do you have a take on this one?
What do you feel is the most inconsistent not called foul in the NBA? I mean, the block charge is always debatable, right? I mean, that's a simple way to answer this.
Yeah. But I think they get it right a lot of the time.
Okay, that's fair.
It looks like they want to know which is the one they miss more often. I would say that there's some traveling going on.
How about off the ball? But I mean, in fairness to the refs, like you can't call all the off the ball stuff, or there wouldn't be a game.
Yeah, and then off the ball with the spacing we have now isn't as much of an issue. The only time I see off the ball problem is like with Curry going off ball to get screens and then just manhandling.
I mean, you could say that for Kevin Huerter, for Duncan Robinson. Like all shooters probably are getting fouled, more than they're getting credit for.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of pushing off. They don't want to call either.
Exactly. Exactly.
the traveling stuff to me, like like LeBron, also here we go again. But he'll split his feet after the catch, right? He's got his pivot foot established, and then he'll split both feet, and then he'll accelerate. That's an advantage that's too far. That you shouldn't be able to get that kind of advantage to get going.
Now I probably get the kind of thing you were talking about. Whenever you say something about LeBron, it's like you're anti-LeBron. But when you look at Steph Curry's feet before he shoots, is he ever traveling?
Well, you talking about the step backs?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like he goes like some kind of like 1-2 and a hop in a way. I don't know. Like you watch Steph shoot a lot. You study him a lot. So that's why I was asking you.
Well, the thing with the 1-2 and the hop is like, okay, you can catch the ball with the foot down, take a step, and then hop, onto both. And you can actually go, let me think here. You can go you catch the ball with the left foot down. You can go right, left, hop, because the first step is the gather. And then you have your second step would be the pivot. And then, yeah, that would be a travel. Yeah, he might a little bit, but I think he's pretty good most of the time.
And you cannot call that like just for the entertainment aspect. You just can't.
Oh, or I mean, in the flow, if it happens really quick, they can't quite catch it. They're not going to call it. They don't see it. So they want to know it correctly. But I don't see Curry traveling too much on those catch and shoot ones coming off of pin downs. I think the one time he gets a little bit happy with the feet is those step backs. But he's cleaned that up too, because he was getting called for that a little bit, and as he should have. But that I don't know. So I think that there's some traveling stuff I see there that could get cleaned up a little bit. But I don't know. I spent a lot of time trying to defend the refs and actually explain why they're correct in their calls, and I'll give them video evidence. Like, for instance, there's a Booker drive that everyone was upset about, that he took a dive. Did you see this one on Twitter?
Yeah.
And it's like you can clearly see that Suggs trips him. He kicks his back foot as he's driving. And I'm like, if you don't want to see it, you don't see it. But then if I show it to you, so I did on Twitter, this morning, I'm like, okay, I will show you the video where you can clearly see him kicking the back foot and tripping him, but only if you then say that you will respond to that tweet and say, okay, I now see it, thank you, or something. I wanted them to acknowledge it, and they won't even reply to that one. So I didn't give them the review, the video replay, because it's like, I don't know. I get tired of showing them and explaining why something is, and then they just go away, and then they probably don't even want to accept it anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Some conversations are a waste of time.
Yeah. Now let's get to Ryan Skolnick, who had the great comment earlier about Vando. Can you talk about how the Lakers basically look like two different teams in this game? The moment Vando checked in, the Lakers looked so different. You know what? I got to wrap my head around that, because I'm watching it and I got to, picture like, when does he come in? How is it?
I'd like to ask you, how has Vanderbilt's shooting numbers been this year?
Let's look. Vanderbilt.
And then I know Coach Darvin Ham wasn't happy about the lineup questions after the game. He said he had to go drink some wine or something.
Yeah, I mean, he's not shooting threes, so he doesn't shoot them well. He won't shoot them. He's cutting. That's working for them. I'm looking right now for when Vando would come in here. I'm kind of curious when you say something like that, like, who does he come in for? So the lineup was, the starters last night or on Saturday were Reeves, Russell, Prince. So everyone's upset about Taurean Prince starting, as if he's got like naked pictures of Darvin Ham, and that's why he keeps playing more than he should. But and then AD and LeBron. There's something that, this isn't necessarily the case, but there are times in the past where I've seen, like, why does this guy keep playing? Does he have blackmail on the coach? Like, what is going on? But anyway, I'm sure he doesn't have those pictures. That was a joke. So let's see, LeBron, AD, and Reeves, and then Christie and Vanderbilt come in for D'Lo and Prince. So, I got to study that to really look at it. But, like, is Vando better than, like, Prince? Probably had a reputation as, like, being a defender, but I don't really think he is.
I mean, Prince is not, he's not the greatest athlete, but he's a lot more skillful than Vando. Like, he's a good basketball player.
Yes, but yeah, so defensively that's going to change, and certainly, when you take D'Lo out of the game, the defense will pick up. Christie has a lot of energy on defense as well. So that's one reason why you see it, even like just visually on the court. But let's see, when Vanderbilt came in the fourth quarter, let's just say, what was the lineup before that was starters. So same idea. He comes in. Oh, but they let D'Lo out there and they took Prince out. Yeah, that was the difference. So you're probably seeing some differences there where there's energy, and he's bigger and longer than Prince in a way that can have more of an effect. So I would have to say that's a big issue. I got to like kind of study frame by frame to really look at what if there's a feeling and a palpable notion of like energy or whatever. But certainly, yeah. And then I think you even mentioned Ryan in the comments that this I want to study as well. If Vando is not just being stashed in the corner where his man can help or in the dunker spot, if they figure out a way to make him more, integral to the offense where his man can't gum up the works, then great. Then that would be something that would be important. That would help them because again, yeah, defensively, that's probably the best lineup they have with Vando in there to balance everybody else out. So there's no question they probably need to go to that. I would say that if there's a failing across the board with NBA coaches, it could very well be lineup management. It definitely feels like there's just not enough influence of the lineup data in who they're playing. And in my mind, you should have an AI on the bench where it will just in real time crunch all the numbers, the score, the time of who's out there, the time of the quarter, who's out there for the other team, and it should be able to give you the optimal lineup in any second to be able to sub in for. So I think that should be the future, and I don't know why they haven't had that yet.
Yeah, I mean AI is going to change the world, so it already has actually.
Yeah, and then Ryan's got a good idea for a video where he wants how non-shooters can be useful on offense. That's a good one. Let me get that down. Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I'll show it here for a second. Let me. Where do I write that down?
The biggest one would be cutting through space. Another one would be setting screens. Another one would be attacking the boards. Right?
Yeah, yeah, and then did you say cutting through space was the first one?
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, certainly cutting, you can look at Draymond, for instance, who they use him a lot in handoffs just to force his man to be active and be part of that. But in that game, they ran a beautiful set as a roll to Kuminga off of I think it was a pick and roll for Steph. And Kuminga makes the right play by kicking to the wide open man in the corner. Well, the reason why that man was open in the corner and AD helped off so much was because it was Draymond who did take the three and bricked it. So that's the problem where you got to be careful when you have Draymond, because in my mind, you probably I would have had Draymond involved in the pick and roll part. So he'd be the one kicking to somebody, a shooter in the corner. But there are ways to figure out how to get like Clay going in that corner and forcing Clay's man to have to rotate, because if he doesn't rotate, then Kuminga gets a dunk. You know what I mean? Or, that's the difference there. So you got to have Draymond much more involved in the actual on-ball play to force the advantage to begin with. And that caught them. I mean, listen, the Warriors also took a foul when there was a 5-second difference in the overtime, or maybe it was regulation, but they didn't need to, and it gave them a 3-point lead, the Lakers, and then they had to tie it. Now, someone mentioned in the comments about the WTF play that they ran to get Clay an open three. Just beautiful run where they actually, that one I don't know if it was a WTF. I think the other one they ran it for Steph. And it was the one where, the inadvertent whistle. So the referee struggled all night long, right? And there was some weird stuff. They called a lane violation on Draymond when, it didn't really affect the play at all. Like he stepped in half a second early. That was weird that they called that and gave D'Lo another free throw. And that same referee, like next time. Oh, and by the way, it was such a troubling call. I suspect that the other ref the next time down called a travel on AD. That was not a travel.
Yeah.
He literally caught it, put the ball down in one motion and drove. There was not even close. And I truly think that was a makeup call for the lane violation. But then that same referee that did the lane violation called an inadvertent whistle on a Clay 3 in the left corner. That was crucial. And they had made it into a jump ball. So, and I believe the Lakers won the jump ball. Now I forgot, but I have to check it again. So those things are really, really interesting when you talk about how I'm not sure how I got to that point, but the refs, whatever. I know. Taking that foul, they didn't have to do that. That was very costly. But either way, we got a chance to see Kerr draw up some great sideline out of bounds plays. Really, really great stuff. Oh, I know. I was going to say on that inadvertent whistle, Curry does a WTF play, which if you don't know what that is, it's Curry sets a back screen on the inbounder from the sideline and then comes around for a handoff. So Curry sets the back screen and the guy cuts the basket, and both like D'Lo and Vando go to the cutter, leaving Curry wide open, ball by himself. But what Curry ended up doing was cutting towards Draymond instead of going straight out to the wing, and that let AD come over and block that shot. You remember that? And they got the rebound. They get the whistle. So little things like that you don't normally see. Curry usually reads that a lot better. He should have, and just gone out to the 3-point line instead of curling closer. So all those things are a thing. But the bottom line is, for me, the Warriors, I think if they're completely healthy, can compete with those top teams. The Lakers are still, a big question mark for me.
I mean, they're both big question marks, but we also have to give LeBron his credit, because everybody who's attacking you for being a LeBron hater, he did hit 2 clutch free throws and had a triple-double. The clutch free throws to win the game, and had a triple-double. Yeah. And it's always great to see Steph and LeBron still playing at a high level all these years later. LeBron is the oldest, LeBron is the oldest player in the NBA, and his ability to still compete like this is just absolutely fantastic. So, you got to enjoy these guys while they're here. But
the free throws were huge, and because, by the way, he has very little experience with free throws of the game on the line like that. Interestingly enough, for a guy at his stature, and I think one of the reasons is because he'll make the right play more all the time, in a way if he gets double ever, he's going to pass the ball to open teammates, and he's gotten crap for that for no reason at all his entire career, and it just happened again this year. And you remember, have to remind me who it was. He kicked it out, whatever, and they were whatever. But then he kicked it out. Maybe it was D'Lo. It was somebody who hit the game winner 2 days later. Out of that same notion of, like, let's get him reps now, so that they're prepared to make the game winning shot when they need to. So, but it was great to see LeBron hit those 2. Those are as clutch as you can have to win the game. And so it was great game.
Yeah, and it's not like one of those things where, like, he forced it in on the free throw line. Like, it looked like a free throw that he would take in the first quarter. Like, that was real, like easy, like nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I think we'll wrap the show up in a few minutes here. What else do we have on to cover before we get to that? Anybody super chats want to get in there? You better get them in now. So Golden State won the jump. All right, so at least they got on that inadvertent whistle. They got the ball back. I got to look at that and remember what the play was. My brain is not functioning well. I just watched that last part again, but I don't have that recall that LeBron does. You ever see him when he does that and he goes, he can do every play all in a row right after the game?
Yeah, photographic memory. Did you get enough sleep, Coach Nick?
I got not only did I get enough sleep, I got more than I need. I got 8.5 hours of sleep last night.
Well, maybe you're still sleeping. Maybe you went to the next sleep cycle.
Yeah, I don't know. 8:42. I was out early, and I started watching True Detective, and it knocked me out in about 5 minutes on the couch.
Okay. Makes sense.
I take it you're not watching True Detective.
No, I'm reading before I go to sleep. For the moment, me and Wemby, we read before we go to sleep.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, you can't. Right, you cannot call Wemby an hour before bedtime for him, I think. Right?
You can't call me either. My phone. Yeah. More than
yes, I know. You're asleep early. You go to bed early in New York, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I have my protocols. No phone for the first 1 or 2 hours of the day. No phone for the last hour or 2 of the day. So yeah.
Wow. I'm like, I wake up on my phone. I'm reading my emails, and
really
precious. Then I can really focus and concentrate.
Yeah, that's tough, because you're not making yourself the priority. You're making the priority everything that's in your phone asking you for things and things to that effect. It's
interesting. I know, I guess that's true. But if I got to take care of things and I'm sharp, it's a good time to do it. I got to do my Wordle.
That's fair too. To your point, you do have probably the most bandwidth, right? When you wake up in the morning, I would only say it's like what you're doing with your phone is most important, right? If you want to use it, you're not just like mindlessly scrolling. If you're getting some work done, yeah. I think.
Yeah, no, but I do the mindless scrolling too. But yes, there's lots of different things we can all do to improve our lives. Maybe we don't. Like go to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym today. You all can hold me to it today. I'm going to go this afternoon. But again, at Planet Fitness, which is around the corner, if you don't get it there at the right time, it's just you can't go.
So I deal with this a lot in the gym. I'm sure you deal with it. Do people come up to you with their basketball takes?
Not at the Planet Fitness. No one's done that yet to me.
Okay. It happens to be all the time in Equinox. Like they'll just start and they'll just come up and start diving right in, like just their takes, like right away. Oh, we're in a show, like we're being recorded.
Wow. Hey, get the phone out. I will say on Saturday, somebody at CSUN saw me and it's like, hey, can I take a picture? I'm like, yeah, sure. But what's cool was I went over to that court, which I was, working with other kids on the other court. And only because I went over there to take the picture, I'm like looking at the pickup game that was going. And one of the players I coached, who graduated in like 2011 or 2012 was there. And I hadn't seen him since then. So I got to tell you, there's nothing quite like that to have like a surprise reunion with a player who, you work with all those years. He was a great kid. Really enjoyed coaching him. He's 30, he's got a kid, he's getting married. Like it was just, he's an adult, it was crazy to see him. So that was worth it on Saturday, really, to see that happen and see him doing well.
You were a part of his process.
In fact, you could see him. He's on my channel. Like when I first started B-Ball Breakdown, I was also the head coach at Birmingham. So I have we did a video, at least one with him, Andrew, out there. You can go scroll down the timeline and find it of him and talking about shooting techniques. He was a lights out shooter in high school. And by the way, the best part about it was I watched a few minutes of the pickup. He was even better, like just shooting from way back. Nobody could stop him. Just like even better than he ever had been when he played for me. So that was also amazing.
Did he go to college after high school?
That's the other thing is I'm like blanking right now because we were trying to get him a scholarship to D1 school, and he just wasn't an athlete enough to play at that level. He could shoot at that level, but he couldn't like move quickly enough. So I'm blanking right now for some reason. I'm going to text him. I got his number and find out what he did because I'm forgetting now what happened for some weird reason. I don't even know why. But anyway, I'll find out. Anyway, well, listen, great stuff today, Combo, as always. Let's hope we get some more great games. I'm going out of town actually next week, but I'll be here. I won't be here next Monday. I'm going to be out of town working.
What day will you be here?
I'll let you know. It's actually a pretty exciting thing, but I'm going to keep it under wraps until I'm done because I got to make sure that it's kosher to release it publicly. But it's a cool thing I'm going to do, and basketball related. But then, so maybe we can sneak one in, or we'll do it when I get back.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks all for the super chats. It was really generous and really helpful of you. I really appreciate all that. And Combo, always great to have you on the show and discuss all this stuff. Great conversation with all and you. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel. We're a conversation. You in?